Saturday, June the 7th at 1:30 p.m. Members of the audience wishing to address this board, there's speaker slips in the back. And, just fill them out and give them to the clerk, and we will let you speak on the appropriate item. With that, please call roll.
Jones.
Here.
Morin.
Here.
Dickinson. McEwen. Peters
Here.
McEwen. Collin. Yee.
Here.
Nilo. Shelby. Leary.
Here.
Natoli. Waters.
Yeah.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Mr. Jones, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I would be pleased to do so. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we move into item number 1, I'd like to introduce Andy Morin, Folsom City Councilor, sitting to the right of Jimmy Yee. Meteorologist by training, works for the National Weather Service. Andy and his brother run the Balcony Restaurant in Folsom, and he's a member of the Folsom City Council, and he is Dan Pillsbury's replacement on this board. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. And Paul Fisher is the new Sacramento General Manager and reports right directly to Ruth Blank, who's the Regional VP. He's standing in the audience for Comcast. He went to Del Campo High School here in town, 19 years in the cable industry, 12 of which have been with Time Warner in Los Angeles. Extensive management experience, and we welcome you to Sacramento, and I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of you. Thank you very much. You got a good boss, too. Thank you. Okay, with that, would you read item number 1, please?
Yes, we have 30 megahertz project, 2 parts, the SECC 30 megahertz briefing and SureWest 30 megahertz license compliance action.
Okay, Mr. Spostl.
Mr. Chairman, members, good afternoon. A year ago to the day, we approved a resolution and agreement transferring the AT&T to Comcast, transferring the franchise and license from AT&T to Comcast. Within that, we included an agreement for compliance for the 30 megahertz network. That agreement said that when the transfer was completed at the Wall Street level, there would be 6 months to do several things relative to complying with 30 megahertz. One was that Comcast would build a network connection, a very large network connection, from the County Office of Education to 4 school districts, and would work with us on a timetable, would work with the education sector. Everything that Comcast agreed to has been done, and in fact, the network is 40% larger than we negotiated for. It goes to 3 additional sites than we negotiated for, and it was operational on time. The second point is that in last September, we provided you with a briefing on the questions and the issues we would be confronting in bringing this network together. Many, if not all of those questions have been answered. And the intent today is to provide you with a demonstration, a briefing, if you will, that will last about a half an hour. Many of you have asked us, what can we do with this network? What is this network all about? It is now today, and we're officially announcing that it is operational and has been operational. With that, I'm going to turn the rest of this item over to John Fleischman and Liz Rhodes. John is the chair of SCCC and the Chief Technology Officer for the County Office of Education. And Liz, as you know, is the Executive Director of the Ed Consortium. So for the next few minutes, they want to brief you on what we can do with what was the 30 megahertz network and is now called BestNet.
Thank you, Rich.
Welcome, John. Welcome.
Thank you. Chairperson Waters, members of the Commission, colleagues, and guests. Again, my name is John Fleischman. I'm chair for the Sacramento Educational Cable Consortium. After what seems like countless meetings and a long time in coming, I'm pleased to stand before you today to announce the launch of the pilot for the Broadband Education Services Technology Network, formerly known as the 30 megahertz network. Some of you probably thought this day would never arrive, and I was perhaps one of those people, but here we are. It's June 5th, 2003, and we can proclaim that the first leg of the network of our collective vision is real, it's operational, and literally it's already serving thousands of students in the greater Sacramento area. On behalf of SCCC, I want to thank each one of you personally for your belief, your foresight, and support of a vision that dates back, about 15 years or so. I'd like to extend a special thanks to the Commission support staff, and especially to Rich Espasto, for his tireless efforts in making this happen. Comcast made a promise to the Commission and to SCCC, and they delivered the pilot. They delivered it on time, and perhaps most importantly, they delivered it at no cost.
That would be on budget.
That would be on budget. Exactly, Roger. Some of the Comcast principals I know couldn't be here today, but there is one special person I believe is here in attendance. Steve Bradley, are you here? Stand up and take a bow, would you? This gentleman single-handedly ensured that the successful completion of Phase 1 of the pilot project. I'd also like to thank Spencer Freund from CSUS. Spencer, who many of you know, provided countless volunteer hours, was always there to share his expertise and technical wisdom, and most importantly, his chutzpah. SCCC would like to acknowledge each of the pilot school districts, Superintendent, soon-to-be former Superintendent Jim Sweeney, and SCCC Representative George Nicholson, Folsom Cordova Superintendent Norm Siefkin, and SCCC Representative Kelly Calhoun, San Juan Superintendent General Davey, and SEC Representative Linda Martin, Elk Grove Superintendent Dave Gordon, and SECC Representative Greg Lindner, and of course Superintendent Dave Meany from the Sacramento County Office of Education. And finally, I want to extend a very special thanks to Liz Rhodes, Executive Director for SCCC. I think Liz has been the torchbearer and perhaps the one person most responsible for ensuring and carrying out this vision and moving forward with the network. It's only been about 4 weeks. About 4 weeks ago, Comcast completed the fiber connections to each of the 4 pilot districts and to the Sacramento County Office of Education. And within several days, those connections, the connections to Folsom Cordova, Elk Grove, Sac City, and San Juan were operational. Our new network is operating at 1,000 megabits per second. A T1 line, which is how many schools and districts, and frankly a lot of them would like to be connected to a T1 line, is 1.5 megabits. Our network is 1,000 megabits. In simple terms, we've gone from a garden hose to an 8-lane superhighway. With the activation of the new network, the County Office of Education, courtesy of something called the Digital California Project, has been able to provide the districts, pilot districts, with enhanced internet and Internet 2 service. For many of the kids in those school districts, it's no longer the worldwide wait. However, the new network is much more than just the World Wide Web. With fast connections, delivering video, multimedia, video conferencing becomes a reality. The day before yesterday, we conducted a video conference between a classroom in Elk Grove at Harriet Eddy Middle School and a California state park in Southern California. The connection gets a little choppy when it moves off of our network. Remember, our network is here in Sacramento, and we connected into a state park. But the kids at Eddy's school were absolutely fascinated, having this kind of a live field trip to a state park. We videotaped, and then the state park is Crystal Cove, which is off the coast in Southern California. We videotaped it at Eddy's school, and what we'd like to do is to take a few minutes and share with you the videotape. If you could bring up the image, and there we go. Oh, look at this. It's actually live. We're actually now running a live connection. What we're looking at right now is a park ranger. We bring up the audio too?
Are we still online? Okay. When we have high tide, the rock formations fill with water, and when the seawater
What we're looking
goes
at
down
right now
at low tide,
is a classroom
then those bowls are left in there
at
with
East
the sea
School
features.
in Elk Grove,
So when you ask what
and we're
size
looking
are the
at a
tide
park
pools,
ranger
you can
coming
imagine
to us from Crystal
different
Cove
rock
State Park.
formations and different beaches. and
Now remember,
different
As we speak.
this is live, guys.
tide pools
This is
vary in
live.
size
This is
and
happening
vary
live.
in the creature.
We are transporting a classroom of students from Elk Grove.
He's talking.
Okay, now I think Ranger Ken is in the tide pools and would like to show you some of his shots that
This
he's
is
in the tide
partially
pools
using
with.
our
Ranger
new
Ken,
network.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm
Network connection goes from the county office to Elk Grove, and then we're going out over the public internet.
The tide pool's fun to look at today. I think there's
If this was happening just internally, it would look like broadcast video, but we're now going over the public internet to get to the state park. Let's watch a little bit of this. He's bringing to these kids, many who have never been to a beach, he's bringing them right to a state park.
So this video, to the kids that are watching it, looks like a TV picture, not as fuzzy and jerky.
No, this actually looks a little bit fuzzy to them because it's using the public internet to get to the state park.
photo up close of a couple of our barnacles here. Also a limpet right in there down to the lower hand right side. This is a kind of a neat thing that I'm walking up. Let me get a little closer for you. These are the sandcastle worm
A little bit
colony.
clearer picture on your
And it's
monitors
kinda
if
neat
you watch
the
your
way
monitors.
They secrete the sand to keep themselves together. This is a small colony of anemones, and I'm going to get a shot of this pool right up here. In just a minute, I'm going to hold the camera real close to the water so you can take a close-up of one of the anemones and see what's happening under the water here. Let me zoom in real quick. And there we go. There's a beautiful anemone. This one's about, maybe 4
At
inches
this particular
across.
state park,
so
they
it's
have
a
the
pretty
ability
mature
to take cameras down to the seashore and underwater,
It's mostly green and kind of grayish blue in color.
and to
And it
transmit that over the network.
Okay. Is the video
Let's see if he
call
can link
over?
back into us. It's what happens when you use the public internet. Our connections with Comcast have been very, very stable. Let's see if he can bring us back up. The Crystal Cove, the California State Park System, is very intent on bridging and putting over the network and linking various state parks to classrooms around California. Thus far, they've connected Anza Borrego, Crystal Cove, Angel Island, and the State Capitol Museum here in Sacramento. Well, perhaps give Bob a call and see if he can bring that dial us back in.
John,
Yeah.
let's work on this point a little bit. The video quality, as Roger Neely just mentioned, the video quality within the Sacramento network
There we
will
go.
be broadcast quality,
zoom in is
and
a
the
tide
base
pool
ability
sculpin. This is
will
one
be
of the
to
bigger
have
ones that I've
at
ever
least
seen. If you look
500 simultaneous video conference or classroom interactions at video quality levels going on. And that's without pushing the envelope at all.
Got him back.
Here we go.
Habitat with waves splashing over them. This afternoon we have a low tide, which allows us to see a lot more critters. Oh, right over here, look at this. This is the red rock crab, and I'm going to try to move the camera over in front of him and get a close-up. There he is. What an interesting looking critter. So let's go back to Rick, and he's going to talk about the sea stars.
Thank you, Ranger Ken. That was a nice tour of the tide pools. What a interesting way to explore the tide pools. I want to show you the sea star. That's what you were looking at the beginning of today's transmission. Was those suction cup feet? We saw them moving around. It looked like something from outer space. Well, those were the suction cup feet. This is a sea star that's upside down. Now, as you remember, last Tuesday when we talked about sea stars, we talked about how they adapt to the tide pool environment. Well, we talked about the suction cup feet, and here they are on the bottom of the sea star. And you can see them moving. In the earlier transmission, when we first started today, you could see the suction cup feet. And I'm going to see if I can show them to you a little more precisely right now. You see these suction cup feet are all moving around, and that's how the sea star actually moves through the tide pools on the rocks, is that he sucks on one piece of rock and then moves to the next piece of rock. This is also how he opens his food. Remember, we talked about how he opens a mussel shell and then he inserts his stomach into the shell. Well, these are the suction cup feet, hundreds of suction cup feet on each ray or each arm. So that's a good example of the sea stars that we were talking about on Tuesday when we were there. Does anyone have any questions about what we've seen so far?
Okay, we've got a couple of questions. We only have time, I think, for the three that have theirs up. Okay, so.
Okay, the boy in the dark T-shirt, yes.
Well, my question was, my name is Nathan Barnum, and my question was, how do the plants and animals adapt in the tide pools and on the rocks when the tide goes down, when the tide comes up?
Well, Nathan, that's a good question. And we've just talked about the sea star, so let's talk about that a little bit more. The way he adapts to the tide pools is those suction cup feet. He's got hundreds of those on each ray. So he grips the rock very, very tightly. And also, when he's flat against the rock and the big waves, like a 20-foot wave comes crashing in there, that flattens the sea star even further onto the rock. So those suction cup feet are really holding tight. Now, when we have a big storm and the waves are really big, sometimes the sea star can be ripped off the rock, and in fact, he may lose one of his rays or one of his arms. And in that case, the sea star adapts by regenerating a new arm. He regrows a new arm. That's called regeneration. Do we have another question?
Actually, Ranger Rick, I think that they're going to need to hold the questions until they see you again at 3 o'clock because we need to transition now to Anza Borrego.
Okay. Nice talking to you.
We're going to spend now a few minutes at another state park.
Greetings from Anza Borrego State Park.
Anza Borrego State Park.
My name's Ranger. My name's Ranger Brian, and if you're not familiar with Anza Borrego State Park, we're in the lower right corner of California. We're about 2 hours inland from San Diego and about 2 hours south of Palm Springs, way out in the middle of nowhere. If I want to see the nearest traffic signal, I've got to drive over an hour to get there. And as you can tell, it's kind of a warm place. Looks like we're just short of 110 degrees this afternoon out here in the desert. Now, if you guys were coming out to visit us in the desert, how would you prepare for a trip to the desert? What would you bring or what would you do?
We wanted to take kids to this state park. It would take them 2 hours to drive out to the state park over a narrow road.
Okay, I heard several. Go ahead, the teacher was calling on Christina, I believe. Stephen, I'm sorry.
My name is Stephen, and I would probably bring a lot of water with me.
The other side of the stage, right?
Yeah.
Good, Stephen. Certainly you'd bring a lot of water. You'd probably also wear a hat like my ranger hat, and you might even put on some sunscreen. And I think you'll find as we look at some of the plants here at Anza Borrego that they do the same sorts of things that you would do if you were planning a trip to the desert. They store a lot of water. They have coverings over them to protect their skin or their plant material. And they shade themselves not with hats, but other ways of shading themselves. So I'd like to talk about a couple of the different plants that we have out here. I wish I could talk about the animals, but they have more sense than to be outside when it's 110 degrees. We've got cool animals just like Crystal Cove. but they come out at night this time of year. They're not out in the middle of a hot afternoon. So we'll focus on some of the adaptations for plants this afternoon here at Anza Borrego Desert State Park. Let me take you first to one of our more interesting plants. This is the California fan palm. And the California fan palm is California's only native palm tree. And you see it growing up behind me here. It loves it out here in the desert, but it doesn't grow in the driest areas. It does need open water. But fortunately, there are a few places where there's open water caused by earthquake faults. The faults open up the rock, the water can seep through. When there's open water on the surface of the ground, the palm seeds can grow, and we suddenly get palm trees growing there, or what we call a palm oasis. Now, the leaves of the palm tree are one of its adaptations for this desert environment. If you see the leaf closely, you see how it's folded or corrugated. And what that does is that not all of the leaf is pointing at the sun at any one time. Part of the leaf is always in the shade. And that's one adaptation for this harsh environment. Another adaptation is what happens when the leaves die. They lay back against the trunk of the palm tree and provide some shade for the palm from the harsh desert sun. They also have very wide-ranging roots, so they're able to gather up that water and make good use of it.
Ranger Brian, can I interrupt? Ranger Brian, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
What we'd like to do is give an opportunity for the Cable Commission members to perhaps ask a few questions of either you or of the students in Elk Grove. What we're going to do is turn the camera around here, and perhaps maybe one of the commissioners might have a question for either you or the park rangers at Crystal Cove, or perhaps maybe the students. Anybody have any questions of either the park rangers?
My first question to the students that I understand are in Elk Grove, is that right?
That's right.
Well, I want to know what they think of this program that we just initiated that is, I just can't explain how scientific or how modern or technologically correct and educational that it really is. It's just, it's not as hot here, Ranger. It's about 98 today. And what'd you say, 110 down there? So again, can I hear something from the kids at school? Do you enjoy this kind of presentation?
Yeah.
Give a big wave to the Cable Commission, because there you go. Because this commission, along with all the staff and all the members that have been mentioned already in Comcast and SureWest, are making this happen today, and it's really a momentous occasion for this board.
Anybody else? Any questions?
In the classroom now, while you're experiencing this, how would you comment on that, and what other sorts of things do you see could be done with this to make the educational process in the class more effective?
Well, first of all, the biggest difference that I can see between what we're doing today and pre-done videotape is that you can't ask a videotape questions. And this allows the children to have specific things that they want to ask the experts, whether they are rangers at a state park, whether they are doctors, any other kind of science or any of the other fields. Language class could talk to authors. History class could talk to people at Amazon website. So the interaction is what makes this totally different than video. And the sort of face-to-face contact that you get between the children and the experts that they want to talk to. That's the biggest difference. Engagement is the second difference. Because they can be actively involved, they are more engaged in the process.
And can you think of other ways that this could be utilized for, as I said, to increase the effectiveness of teaching in the classroom?
interactions, perhaps even, in the future, from one country to another. It could be used for language development. I'm certainly not an expert in all the things that it could be used for, but I think the possibility only be limited by our imaginations. Let's just put it that way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you very much to the class at Harriet Eddy School. Thank you, students. Thank you to the park rangers at Anza Borrego and Crystal Cove. We're going to log off from here. If you'd like to continue your lesson, please do so. We're going to go ahead and continue the Cable Commission meeting. Again, thank you very much.
And we want to thank them all, too.
And thank you from the commission members.
Thank you.
Thank you, students. The commission members, thank you as well. Thank you.
That was
You
great.
go ahead. And,
Fun to see the Rangers, too.
they're great.
Yeah,
They're
it was
absolutely
great.
wonderful.
Yeah.
You go ahead and kill the screen and the audio, and we'll continue on. It is really marvelous. And again, what we saw...
Okay, well, do
was
we
a-
have any more questions from the...
Go ahead and kill the audio, too.
Would you tell them that they're interrupting?
Yeah, no, yes, exactly. What we saw, of course, we were using one segment of our network, and had this been entirely over our network, it would have been broadcast quality video, but we're going out again over the internet in order to get to those state parks, and you know what happens over the general internet. So
That was
but
just incredible.
But these kinds of things, it is amazing. So that ability to go live to a state park, we did a lesson on Tuesday, and the kids were saying, why can't we have this in every classroom? They're just expecting it now to be there all the time. And we do see that into the future.
I used to teach, and so, I had sixth graders, fifth graders, and, to have a tool like that would be just incredible.
Well, frankly,
in terms of the imagination and actually seeing things. And the interaction's great.
At Crystal Cove, they actually do take a camera underwater and transmit it live. So we're real excited about building that relationship with the state parks. What we'd like to do is to bring up a few speakers quickly, just for a few minutes each. I'd like to ask Greg Lindner to come up, and Greg's going to talk just a little bit about the kinds of cost savings this means to us in the short term and over the long term. Greg?
Thank you. Good afternoon. What I'm having handed out to each of you is basically just a spreadsheet that goes over the costs that we have currently for the type of connectivity we have in Elk Grove, and then what kind of an impact this BestNet will have on us over time. Currently, we have a 45 megabit link to the internet through SCOE, and when the BestNet came up, we jumped that up to a gigabyte or 1,000 megabits. So it's basically 22 times what we have today. We tried to get quotes from our local phone company, which is Frontier, for 2/3 of our district, and we're not even able to get a quote on what a gigabyte connection would cost. So what we pay without any discounts, basically for our 45 megabit link is about $47,000 per year. So with discounts, that cuts down to around $11,000. With BestNet, it's zero. So immediately, just with this connection, we're saving, with all our discounts, $11,000, but without discounts, $46,000, $47,000 per year. As this network is pushed out to all of our schools, we anticipate, without discounts, saving close to $500,000 a year, which is a huge impact. We could not afford to have this kind of connectivity to the internet. It's bringing certainly good things to our classroom and our students. We're very appreciative of it. The last item I just wanted to mention was, we are very fortunate to have E-rate discounts and what's called California Teleconnect Fund discounts. E-rate gives discounts based on your telecommunications based on your free and reduced lunch counts in your schools. And our district gets approximately 52% discount. And then CTF gives an additional 50% discount on certain funds. Both of these discount programs, the E-rate, are under attack. One from the House of Representatives was introduced on March 12th to kill that program. Last week, there's two subcommittees, one in the Assembly and one in the State Senate, trying to kill or amend and modify the CTF program. So my point is, we save a lot of money with BestNet, we can't be guaranteed E-rate and CTF is going to be around forever. And it does have a significant financial impact to us, and we're very appreciative that BestNet's gone forward.
Can I ask you a question? Is the $500,000 you said in savings, is that actual savings or is that cost that you won't incur? Were you already doing those programs?
That's what we cost we would not have to incur if we're getting it for free via BestNet.
So the actual savings in today's budget is the $47,000.
The bottom half there, if with all our discounts, would be even with discounts, would be $100,000 a year savings.
And is that money in a line item that can now be spent on students in another way, or does it go to administration? What happens to that?
It's
savings?
in telecommunication line items right now. So it could be, as we get these things up and running, redirected.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lidner. I'd next like to ask Dr. David Meany, he's County Superintendent of the County Office of Education, to say a few words.
I'm supposed to talk about governance, so I'll tell you that this is being overseen by a group of district superintendents that are served by the project, but the truth be known is the Greg Lindners of the world that are doing the real work, but the superintendents are the ones that are sort of the committee that oversees it. But and I tell you, all the district superintendents have been very involved. We've had a number of teleconferences and face-to-face meetings, and they've committed to continue the oversight directly themselves and assigning staff to make sure that this thing really does work. I just wanted to mention to you that this is one piece of a statewide network. We're fortunate in that we've taken a high-speed statewide network called the Digital California Project. It's something that I sit on a commission, I oversee a commission implementing that. We are the only people in California that have a really high-speed link directly to school districts. The others are going to be years, billion years out, and they'll never get to our level, I don't think, to the speed that we have. So we're connecting to a high-speed network that connects all the county offices and most of the school districts in California, and other universities and other centers around the United States, and onto the internet too, which is a worldwide internet. So we are a high-speed local link to a statewide and national and international high-speed network. So we can bring the whole world at a very high rate right to our classrooms. As far as I know, we're the only people in California, and maybe in the whole United States, there are very few that can do what we can do. And here again, I thank you for that. I'm here today to commit to you that my office, the County Office of Education, will continue to support this in a very direct way. Within the last month, I've invested $200,000 into video conferencing equipment that will allow us to go face-to-face between all the school districts in the project, to do teacher training from district to district, to do the kinds of things that you've seen from classroom to classroom across districts. It takes a certain kind of a bridging equipment to do that. It also helps us to save money not having to come together for meetings. So we're going to buy that kind of equipment. I'm building a new television studio. We're going to do productions out of that studio, teacher training, student activities and so forth, directly into the classrooms using this network as well. So I thank you for your vision and your courage to implement that vision. I thank Comcast and SureWest for their part of this. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I'm really enthused, as you can tell. I just love it. And the district superintendents are as well.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meany. As you know, the first leg of our network has been built by Comcast, and another section covering another part of the county will be built out by SureWest. If you move ahead with that agreement, one of the districts that will impact significantly is Grant Joint Union High School District. I'd like to ask Dr. Larry Buchanan to come up and say a few words. A very progressive individual in terms of using new technologies. Dr. Buchanan.
For sure.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Very simply, the most significant words you can hear today are the walls to the classroom are down. The walls to the classroom are down. One more time. The walls to the classroom are down.
We're not going to forget it, Larry.
Can't hear you. Talk faster.
That means that anywhere in the world that the kids want to go that are hooked up to this network, there can be interaction and learning going on. And what I found is that education is basically relationships. Okay? The content and other things that they learn come out of the relationships that are formed. I was at a luncheon today where we gave out awards to a group of kids that were from our continuation schools. They held the first Knowledge Bowl by video conference last week. These are two schools that typically the kids don't talk to each other, or if they do, it's not with words. This is the best integration program I have ever seen. So those kids came together today. Their interaction was at an entirely different level than you would normally see with these kids in terms of communicating, their thinking, and their responses to each other. So this network will really enhance our capability of doing that. Within our district, we have for next year, we will have over 300 small hardware codecs for interaction. We're giving those to teachers, to librarians, to administration. What we're seeing with teachers is when they work on curriculum, we don't have a lot of time during the day for them to collaborate. Well, they can send themselves each other video email, they can talk to each other, they can collaborate on the projects real time and keep that interaction and have the teachers be excited about learning, and teachers excited about learning are the best thing for kids. So what we're also seeing is that being able to use the multimedia instructional software to deliver instruction over the network is the next phase of where we're going with these kind of things. And that will require high bandwidth. We definitely are looking forward to our connection to the County Office of Education for the content and the programs that they will be able to provide from there, and other resources that will be further out on the network. We would love to be able to have our classrooms with their walls down, talk to the classrooms in Elk Grove and other school districts, because again, that relationship with kids and that interaction that you saw is really where the real learning starts to take place. So with this then with video is the place where it's easiest to take advantage of the current technology, and it's also the highest bandwidth utilization. So this is a really necessary project. We really appreciate it. There will be other things that we will do with our network going over the internet. And right now, if we turned on all of our equipment for next year, all at one time, we would be using about 300 megabits internally. And hopefully soon we will be able to talk to people outside the network. So again, what we thought 10 years ago at 1.5 megabits was Star Wars technology. We're rapidly reaching the point where we see a gigabit will not be enough for our communication needs. So thank you.
Larry, Isla has a question for you.
I wanted to make sure I correctly understood, because I think you talked about classrooms being able to talk to other classrooms, and the potential of that would be incredible in terms of, I've seen some really enthusiastic things happen in a classroom with kids over maybe a field trip they've taken and some of the things they want to share. And I've seen it shared with the whole school. But this would give them an opportunity to communicate that to another classroom. Is that what I'm hearing, is maybe some potential that would be there?
Well, actually, we have 40 classrooms in our district right now that are connected that way. So 20, working with 20 other ones. Yeah. Probably the best example is our Criminal Justice Academy at Grant High School, who works with the forensics teacher at Foothill High School.
Yeah.
So those two classes collaborate because they have different parts of a law enforcement program. And then we bus them over to do something as a field trip, and they'll do something like handcuff each other or something. But that connection is made with that video conferencing over a period of time, builds the relationships and the interactions, and expands what, share just briefly with you, one of the comments I had from a teacher. Said it's really hard. We're going to go to a modified block schedule, which can be up to 90 minutes. For a teacher to be full on for 90 minutes is a real stretch, okay? But with this, they can team teach, and they can keep the energy going, and our connections teachers are saying that that is a real advantage to be able to keep a high energy level in the classroom and keep a high interest going. So yes, it is. It's a perfect use of this technology.
Well, then, I really agree with your comment about an incredible way to integrate and learn about the different communities. We all live in very different communities in our different school districts, and that opportunity to talk back and forth. I watched it happen on the internet, and just with the kids typing things when we were in Japan. They had a class here in Sacramento that they loved to exchange things over the internet with, and they were having a great time in spite of a language difference. And so this just opens up a whole new world to our children in Sacramento County. So that is great. This is exciting. Yeah.
Thank you, Larry.
Dr. Buchanan. One more brief presentation. One of the wonderful things about Smctc is that it's a group of organizations, school districts, community-based organizations, higher education, that work together to support education. I'd like to ask David Hosley to come up. One of the great websites of all times is the PBS website. David?
Great. Welcome.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm delighted to be here on this day. I do have probably some mic technique tips to offer to the people who were in that demonstration.
Yes.
And those kinds of things are natural at the beginning. They're going to smooth out over time as they get used to how to best use that technology. But boy, what an exciting thing for us to be able to see. And KVIE would like to bring some resources to this partnership with Smctc that can complement some of the things that you've heard about today. I think some of you may know that KVIE is putting on a brand new digital television station. We're actually going to start testing it next week and have an official switch-on ceremony on June 18th. And we have a brand new strategic plan, and a key part of that plan calls for the station to leverage digital technology, not only our new station, but the partnership that we're here to talk about today, and other ways in which we can take advantage of this digital technology. We also feel that at a time when state and local educators are grappling to find resources, that non-commercial broadcasters can really be a great resource to help teachers and administrators bring information to their students and to their classrooms. We should take advantage of the technology because we have a big enough challenge as it is with these constraints on resources. KVIE at the beginning here will be bringing 3 initiatives to bear on the 30 megahertz project. The first one is Teacher Source and the National Teacher Training Institute. Through KVIE, you can currently go to our website and teachers can access 4,000 lesson plans on just an amazing array of topics that help teachers take some shortcuts and not have to be reinventing the wheel every time that they want to present a particular subject.
I would have loved that.
I don't think they had those when you were teaching, and so
No,
you had
they
to
did
do it
not.
yourself. Most of these are relating to the California state guidelines as well. They are largely tied also to PBS programs, and so we would like to investigate whether we can take this information that's online now and use this 30 megahertz initiative to begin to push that into the classroom. It may be that some of these things, including training teachers how to use video and other kinds of technology effective in their classroom, so that we won't hear the teacher from Elk Grove in the future say, I'm not an expert on this. So that every teacher in a classroom will feel that they're up to speed, whether they're 2 years out of college and they naturally know what the internet's all about, or whether they're 2 years from retirement. So we think that we can be a big help in that regard. We also feel that we can augment some of the things that we're seeing examples of today. I happen to have brought a videotape because I'm very frugal, and Isla asked for a copy of Forced Out, which Councilmember Yee saw at our station, and Supervisor Dickinson was there that night. It's a brand new program about what happened to Japanese American business people during World War II. And we could bring in a member of the Japanese American community, and they could be in our studio, and then they could interact with the students who are in the various classrooms. We also could tape that and play it back the next time the teacher needs to offer that. So we could have video on demand for the classrooms as well. There could be some real opportunities to change dynamics of training. I don't know how you feel about your school-age kids, but if you have them or grandchildren, I hate the minimum days when the teachers go off to do the training and you have to adjust your daycare. Well, we feel that we can offer a lot of national teacher training with the very best trainers and push it down to the classroom, or push it to the desktop, or push it into a conference room at a school site where the teachers can come together and interact with the trainers. And it's very economical, increases the quality of the training as well, and it can complement what's already going on in our schools today. The National Teacher Training Institute is a PBS initiative that brings these teachers together in one place to learn about technology in the classroom. We think there's a possibility to use this spectrum then to make that available to a much greater number of people. The second initiative that we would like to bring to bear on this work is a virtual math academy called Teacher Line. I think that we all understand how critical it is for our students to have strong math skills. If you've been to a store recently and had a teenager try to count back change to you, you understand that there's a learning curve here that we somehow managed to grasp that is not being accomplished today. So math is just critical in almost everything that we do in the workplace. And Teacher Line particularly is an aid for people who are instructing math. It gives them a chance to connect with each other, so you have that collaboration that was talked about earlier. It gives them also a chance to see some videos that have been prepared on how to most effectively teach mathematics, to show them how teachers are doing this in other places so that you can model teaching behavior. And it can put them in touch with a teacher all the way across the country so that they can ask questions and get tips and access the people who are doing the best work in this area. And then finally, it's our intention to bring to this project the opportunity to expand our existing Ready to Learn initiative, in which KVIE and we've actually cooperated for a number of years with SCCC. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so we hired them to do our training in part. But it goes and teaches parents, grandparents, daycare providers, early grade of elementary school teachers and their administrators how to effectively use video. And all that curriculum, believe it or not, Barney actually has a full-blown curriculum in each program that you see. And there are things that we're teaching to those kids when they're getting ready to go to elementary school that are absolutely critical in them learning their ABCs and a love of reading, learning how to count and develop basic math skills, learning how to get along with other people so that when they get in the job and find out you don't just get to work with your friends, but you have to work with everybody in the workplace and get along and appreciate their differences. These skills are the ones that we think we may be able to bring so that we could have ready-to-learn sessions delivered through the 30 megahertz initiative. These are just some examples of what might be possible. I think we are only scratching the surface. KVIE, in all honesty, hasn't fully utilized what's been available to us to aid teachers and help in the classroom. The station turned away from that about a decade ago. When I came, we immediately started going back in that direction, and our new strategic plan is evidence that we are now going to ramp up, and this initiative is a great opportunity for us to do so. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you might have them.
Thank
and
you.
Would you deliver this to Supervisor?
Thank you very much, David, for remembering. Thank you.
David, you can see why we're excited with the relationship with KVIE. You've all been given packets. You should have this document, BestNet, which just describes some scenarios and where we're going with this network. You should also have a videotape. If you do get a chance, take a look. It's about 5 minutes. There's some examples of how we're currently using the technology and how we plan to use the technology. Over the next couple of months, SCCC and your executive staff will be working with the cable providers to begin to extend the network, develop a plan to extend the network to the remaining districts, other SCC partners, and eventually to school sites. And we're very, very excited about that. We will come back and we'll report to you on a regular basis with progress, and we hope to show you some even better examples of how we're applying this wonderful new technology. So again, thank you for allowing us to take the time today and to share with you. This is a very, very important project to Sacramento, and again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Susan Gonzalez. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Well, this is an exciting day for Comcast, and it's actually rather exciting to see all this technology in place. I am here to not only experience this, and also want to express that Karen Monroe and Ruth Blank would have liked to be here, however, they are on the East Coast today. But I also did want to ensure that everyone in the Commission knows about our new call center in Sacramento, and we are breaking ground next Tuesday. And we will be hiring approximately 350 new employees in that area, and we'll be outreaching to community organizations such as CETA and the Urban League as we begin recruiting later this summer. So I just wanted to ensure that everybody is aware of that, and would love to have you join us if possible. And I also just wanted to make myself available if you did have any questions for Comcast at this time.
Okay, I just, and it's pronounced SETA?
SETA.
SETA, and let's see, you're on the governing board, I'm on the governing board. Natoli's on the governing board, as well as Sophia Sherman and Bonnie Pinnell. And, any help that that staff can give you, I know they'd be more than happy to help. We have a lot of providers out there that we contract with, and I know they'll steer you in the right direction. So.
Great. Well, I'm sure we'll be following up with you.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you, Susan. Okay, I have no other speakers from the audience. Go ahead then, Mr. Spasta.
The second item under this general item is to follow up on the SureWest agreement that was presented to you in April. At that time, that agreement was quite warm. It had just been finished that morning. You directed that it go back to council to go from a staff draft into an acceptable legal document as to form. Harriet has worked with the SureWest attorneys and done that and put it in that form. One of the, I think, the most significant change to the document was the council advised that the SCCC become a party to that document. What this provides for is, this addresses what SureWest's obligations are in now the Best Net network. It says that SureWest will activate Grant, as you just heard Dr. Buchanan, who's quite interested in seeing Grant get connected to the network, as well as Del Paso, Los Rios, and Natomas. There's no other changes of substance. The other parties to the agreement, that being SureWest and SCC, have executed the agreement. Staff believes it is fair, reasonable, and addresses appropriately the level playing field, the on-balance issue, and that is the SureWest obligation reasonably tied in balance to what the Comcast obligation is. So therefore, it's recommended for your approval.
Are there any questions? Yes, James?
We have the resolution from Comcast, about 30 megahertz. We'll be getting a similar resolution from, SureWest from Comcast as well.
The Comcast resolution is the one that you approved a year ago that provided the broad parameters. There are subsequent negotiations that are beginning now that will come back to you in the future at some point, probably in August, for the next phase of Comcast.
That's the one I was referring to.
Yeah, we actually got the Comcast proposal for the next phase night before last.
Okay, but there's discussions with
Yes, there are.
Okay, all right.
Hey, Mike?
Yeah, I'd like to move staff's recommendation.
Okay.
Second.
Motion is second. Mr. Jones would like to speak to the matter.
Actually, I have some questions for staff.
Sure.
I appreciate your bringing this back as an actual agreement at this hearing. It adds a little more certainty with regard to what it is you're asking us to do. In looking at the agreement, I'm looking at the sections that deal with connecting the schools in each of the school districts. And specifically, I'm looking at page 5 of the agreement that's attached to our staff report. It's heading number 8, public school 10 megabyte Ethernet connections. And there's an A and B there. B provides that SureWest shall have until December 31st, 2003 to provide the Ethernet connections to schools that are currently passed by active SureWest plant. And then A provides that as SureWest passes by schools, it will connect those schools. I guess my question to begin with is how many schools are there within the 4 districts under paragraph 5A of the agreement? Grant Joint Union, Natomas School District, Del Paso Heights, and Rio Linda.
I don't have that number for you.
Okay. Does anybody in the audience know?
You want to know how many schools?
Yeah. How many total schools in the 4 school districts?
See.
Okay.
The ones that feed into Grant, that what you're talking about? The
No,
feeder schools for Grant
in the
and
4 school districts that are covered by this agreement, how many individual schools are there?
By the agreement before us, which is for the north area?
Yeah.
I would guess between
That's
40
all
and
of
50.
them, isn't it?
You named the 4 school
Yeah,
districts.
it's in the agreement.
Yeah.
It's
Rio Linda.
it's Grant Union, Natomas, Del Paso Heights, and Rio Linda.
I can get those
Hi, Liz.
exact numbers. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Liz Rhodes, Executive Director of SCCC. I can get those numbers for you. Dr. Buchanan and I and Dr. Meany, we don't have them on the top of our heads. But the agreement, and correct me if I'm wrong, covers all schools, not just the schools in those 4 districts. Every single school that Sure West passes.
Okay, that's helpful. So is the agreement then to wire all of the schools in these 4 districts, or is it to wire all of the schools in these 4 districts, and then there's some other number of districts that are affected also?
So over 400 schools eventually when they cover the entire area.
Okay, what's the area that they're currently licensed to cover?
Sure West is licensed to cover the entire county.
Just like...
All right, but in terms of the actual build that we've approved...
We've approved, Sure West has inherited what you've approved for Win First, and that includes north of the river from Natomas to Folsom, or to the river on the east side.
All right, so does this agreement apply just to that build, or does it apply to the entire license area covered by Sure West?
The latter.
Okay. Then, as to that, I mean, and we don't, I mean, we've approved a certain build, though. We don't know what other areas they may come in to seek to build under their license at this time.
We don't know that. They have indicated they will be coming forward with additional areas to build in the near future.
Okay. So does anybody know the number of schools in the area that they've agreed to build, which may be different than the number of schools in these 4 school districts identified here? I understand you're telling me that.
I don't.
Okay. Then my next question is, so under 8B, Sure West will have until December 31st, 2003 to connect to schools that it currently passes. Does anybody know what number of schools that is?
My recollection that at the time we negotiated, there were 9 schools that were passed with active plant.
Okay. And then 8A says that Sure West will connect to any schools that it passes by. Does anyone know with regard to the area that we've approved for build, what number of schools that is?
I don't have that number.
Okay. Does anybody know with regard to that second group of schools when we might reasonably anticipate, I understand this is a bit of a guess because it's based on circumstances actually outside of Sure West's control largely, but when we might reasonably anticipate those schools would be connected?
Sure West has said that they will complete their phases 1 and 2 by 2006. So every school in the area they're authorized to build now, that stretch I described generally, they are obligated to complete by 2006. Their obligation is that they cannot move to another area unless they've reasonably proven or shown that they have met that. In meetings this week, our meetings and talking with Public Works, on a conservative wrap-up, it looks like Sure West is running about a year ahead. So we may safely, generally say that by 2005, they will have built out the areas that they currently are authorized to build, roughly speaking.
All right. I'm very pleased to support this, and I appreciate all the hard work that Smctc has done, Sure West, Sacramento County Office of Education, the school districts that are involved, and this is a great thing. And those of you who've been watching this commission or appeared before it for some time know that this is something that I as a commissioner have been pushing for some time, and that is to get the 30 megahertz commitment that we were promised a long time ago, not by Sure West, but by the predecessor entity to Comcast. And so I fully support this. But I do think it would be helpful if we could have a little more detail the next time one of these is brought before us with regard to the questions I'm asking. Because at the end of the day, it seems to me that what we're all about is reaching the kids and reaching the schools. And I know to get there, you've got to reach the school district headquarters, you've got to reach SCOA, you've got to reach the community colleges, you've got to reach, I understand all that. And it's all part of the importance of this network that all that's connected. But I'm really focused on the schools, and I don't want to see us leave any school behind. And I'm concerned because it just would be helpful. It'd just be better, it seems to me. I don't mean to suggest that we shouldn't approve this. We should approve it. I fully support it. But it would just be better if we had a little more detail on answers to the question I just asked with regard to what number of schools are going to be immediately connected, what numbers of schools will be connected, and what would be a reasonable time frame for the connection of those schools? Because I think it's exciting, and I think we should then use that information to let folks know about the good work that's being accomplished here, that's being accomplished with our relationship to Comcast. I think it'd be helpful. I appreciate all the work the staff have done, Harriet's done, and everyone that's brought this together. It's very, very exciting. Congratulations to everyone. Thanks, Rich.
Yes, Roger.
Mr. Chairman, I just had one question with respect to Section 5, just because I don't recall. Can someone refresh my recollection with respect? I understand Section 5 speaks to the district headquarters, but with respect to, in particular, the arrangement with the other districts in the same general geographic vicinity, namely North Sacramento, Robla, and Alberta. Is it simply that they're not at a stage where they want their headquarters connected to this, or just what's the arrangement, if any, regarding those districts and their headquarters?
May pitch that to Dr. Buchanan, but my understanding is that the size and traffic of those districts don't warrant bringing the biggest pipe to them, and we have to work through, essentially, I think, network-wise, we'll be looking at them more like a school and be linking them back through one of the bigger districts, and that comes up in the next phase. And, are all of them on the Comcast list? I thought they were going through round. Okay. Liz, help me here. I thought they were on...
I live, eat, sleep this stuff. I know it inside out.
All right, Liz.
My kids even know it. No, all of the districts...
It's a scary thought, Liz. It's a very scary thought.
Talk to my kids.
That's an equally scary thought.
Yeah. The districts that are not on here are on the Comcast list. Every district headquarters is covered by either Comcast or SureWest, and in a few instances there are overlaps. And we explained to you last time, that we needed those overlaps, and SureWest and Comcast have both agreed to that. But the idea was not to duplicate what either one of them was doing, but it all seamlessly comes together through the magic of people like Greg Linder, to be the one best net.
Okay, so
They are all covered. They all get the big pipe,
all right.
either through SureWest or Comcast, so no one was left behind.
Okay. Been a while since I'd seen the list, so I just have to make sure.
Obviously,
Yeah, that's that other exhibit.
Yeah.
That exhibit B, right?
No, it's Exhibit D and E.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
If we have no other comments, we do have one speaker, Robert Dugan.
My goodness.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here to echo the sentiments. I'm sorry, Robert Dugan with SureWest Communications. It's my pleasure to be here to echo the sentiments that were raised during the presentation, that this is good stuff. What you have before you on this particular agenda item is the agreement that SureWest has reached with your staff and with the SECC. Quickly, just to clarify, Councilmember Jones, we've got 4 district offices, plus a couple redundant locations like Los Rios, et cetera. In addition to that, and separate from that, we've agreed to give it a connection to every school in our footprint, not just in those districts, but in our footprint. And as Liz said, through the magic of the technology guys, and I only play one on TV, I'm not really one of them, they create a virtual network. So they're all part of that same network. The exciting thing with this agreement before you is the whole idea of the giggy network. When we first came to the table, the 30 megahertz thing was still kind of cloudy, and we proposed this idea last fall of, instead of the OC12 obligation, let's go with an Ethernet, giggy network type product. It's easier to build, it's fiber-based, and you can do all this cool stuff like put everybody together. And it probably decreased some overall cost on everybody's part, and it created a significantly higher level of technology and capacity. And that's what we have before you today. And it's real neat because you got to see what some of that works like, because the current franchisee has used that technology platform in its current pilot project. And we'll be able to get all those districts together with our obligation and with other franchisees' obligation, if they're held at that standard, into almost virtually the same network. And it's kind of the way to do that. So it's really exciting. We've also agreed to a level of detail which has raised the questions that you've asked. on each school and each obligation. That's a little bit higher level of detail than an agreement that's been reached yet elsewhere. But I think with us covering every school in our footprint, which will be the entire franchisee area as we build out, and that is our plan to keep building, and we think we're about a year ahead, then if you take that and use that as a template to move forward with other providers as they come in, I think you'll have all the schools that basically are in neighborhoods with access to cable television services. So I think that's maybe a direct answer to the concern you raised. We're pleased to be here to support this negotiated agreement. We're all in agreement that it can work, and we look forward to your vote so we can get building our part. Thank you.
Thank you, and for all your cooperation, basically spirit in this. Thank you very much, Robert.
And thank you to the Commission, thank you to staff and to the SEC and for the school districts for helping us grapple with what 30 megahertz might look like, because that was a learning curve for us as well. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
You know, some people are very excited about the Gigi network. Others won't be truly excited until the Jiggy network is here.
No comment. All right. No other comments. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimously passes. Item number 2, please.
We have the Cable Commission 2003-2004 budget.
Mr. Spasso.
Chairman members, I will do an overview, and then we can drop down with additional detail if you have questions.
Could we do this on an internet interactive kind of?
So our bosses can see it?
Boss, I was on the beach at Shasta last week. I would love to do that. Yes. Key elements of your budget. Let's start with the revenue side. Staff is estimating a little over 2% reduction over this year on cable television license revenues and franchise fee revenues. Again, the dynamic is changing with the presentation or the option for satellite services. So we're being not overly cautious, but we're being a bit conservative here. But we've always been a bit conservative. So we're estimating revenues at a little over $7.5 million. You gave us a policy direction, effectively an advisory decision of $1.16 million for the community programming entities in April, and that is built into this budget as you can see. And your other direction was to make the budget work as best as possible to maximize revenue back to the parental entities, and that's running right now at about 98-point-something% of where we were last year. Some of the other bits and pieces are for the proposed budget that we've earmarked $45,000 for an audit of the commission itself. While the county is currently working on the audit of the cable company, they're behind several years now, 4 years, on auditing the commission, and that's our best guess in talking to the county. I've set or recommended to set about a 3% operating contingency within the budget. That's $10,000 as a line item for contingencies, a specific line item. And I've built into the legal budget an additional couple of percent overall, but additional $20,000 for what I see as two potentials on the legal horizon. One, there may be some clouds in the regulatory perspective that we don't have yet, but I could see them possibly out there. But the bigger one is that it's been since 1990 that we looked at the customer service regulations that we have in place on the cable television systems. I think it's time to go back in and look at those again, or it may be time to go back in and look at those again. There hasn't been so much preemption from the federal level as much as there has been changes in operating practices and reality. Some of it having been brought about by competition, some of it just as things have changed. So that was a significant project when we tackled it a bunch of years ago, so I targeted some dollars for that. But in the budget, that's there as under the umbrella of a contingency, if you will. The rest of the budget items, as we walk on through, are based on what I feel are solid historical perspectives and straight up things that we're having to deal with, like increases in insurance, as most of you know, and from your other views, workers' comp has gone up. We have, different than the current year, We're not proposing any major or any expenditures at all for consulting services. This year, we had a fairly significant engagement with Bill Edgar. There's none of that proposed in the package now. With that and with Diane's help, who did most of the prep work, I'd be happy to take questions.
I didn't make the announcement, Dave, at the start of the meeting, so you're
I'm safe,
free
huh?
ride on that.
Thank you.
Well, that's one.
Free ride.
Only one free ride. Okay, are there any questions as it relates to the budget from any of the commissioners?
Just,
Yes,
this is just a clarification because it came up at the LAFCO meeting last night about having everyone having to build into their budget increases. And as I understand it, that is not in this year's budget, that they have to put the increases. We can revisit that.
Right. At one time, the recommendations of our consultant, Mr. Egger, proposed a budget level for Metro at $175,000. And I told you then we would most certainly be in a mode of having to charge any outside entity. At the allocation now of 283, we can continue to carry outside entities who are in this facility or the city facility because those are our least expensive ones. What's gone from our Metro 14 operation plan is the outreach. We've had a policy for many years that any new government entity that wanted to be cablecast, we'd pick up the tab on the first three, and we would charge them incremental cost or as little cost as we could as part of our marketing plan. That piece had to be pulled back. So we've got Metro now. I wouldn't say at an absolute core budget, but very near. But the outside entities, LAFCO, and the others that meet in those two facilities,
Two chambers, okay.
they're at status quo.
That and I indicated that I thought that was going to be the case. But until the budget's adopted, you don't know. And I think that as long as they continue to hold LAFCO meetings either here or at the City Council, you have easy access to staff and facilities. Okay.
Mr. Dickinson?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just to pick up on what Ms. Collin was asking about, Rich, if I heard it correctly, with respect to Metro Cable 14's operations, and you've got a budget that's about $6,000 over your actuals, your estimated actuals for the current fiscal year, and you were saying that we're cutting back on the outreach of offering free meetings. So is there some place in which that is reflected? Because you've got a cost of living adjustment and some benefit adjustment in salaries and wages, which take you up about $22,000. But is the outreach reflected as a reduction here somewhere over the actuals?
Not as an item or not as a number that I can track. No, the answer is no.
I mean, how are we saving money by not doing that? Where would I look to see that as a result of trimming that activity, we're saving money?
It would show up, well, it's part of the offset. Let me see if I can get all this right. It's expenditures we wouldn't be making for that are at the staffing level, primarily in with the PAs.
I'm sorry, primarily what?
Primarily at the production assistance.
Oh, PAs.
In the PAs in the personnel budget. But Don, help me here. I can't grab a specific number for that. The offset on the upside in terms of the workload is that we're estimating between $18,000 and $22,000 a year to pick up Rancho Cordova, if I've got the numbers right in my head, and that's being absorbed within some of the other figures.
And that is fundamentally a personnel cost?
Yes.
So, in other words, if for those who are looking at salaries and benefits, if in fact you were continuing or proposing to continue outreach as you've described it at the same level, you would reflect more than 3 positions and a higher salary and benefit a number than you are. Is that Is that right?
Right, we'd probably be adding, I don't have the number, but I would be guessing $4,000 to $8,000 a year in potential outreach. It's varied year by year. I honestly don't remember the last couple of outside entities that have picked up the 3 freebies and the ongoing part there. But my recollection is it's $4,000 to $8,000 a year. There's been some talk by a couple of school districts of possibly getting on board.
Okay, maybe it's me, or maybe the mic's swallowing your words a little, but I'm losing some of what you're saying at the end of your sentences.
Looking at Diane here, I think the outreach portion of our budget is probably $4,000 to $8,000.
4 to 8?
That is correct.
It's reached a little higher occasionally, but that's more in the average. It varies.
Okay.
So it makes the difference in personnel between perhaps having to add another person because of the workload of having to cover the other meetings, and I think that's what you're trying to get at?
Well, it sounds like that to me.
Or it's overtime, or,
just, I mean, when one looks at this on its face, and we've talked about Metro Cable 14 absorbing some reduction in light of the fact that grantees are taking a hit. It's not possible. I'm not going to say it's difficult. It's not possible, for me at least, to see where that is. So that's why I'm trying to identify it.
Okay. You reduced the allocation on Metro 14. The way the last 2 years that you've treated Metro 14 has been as your entity, and the allocation last year for Metro 14 was $335,000. Plus or minus. The allocation to Metro 14 this year is $283,000. So you've reduced the allocation to Metro 14 less than what the operating cost will be this year. The difference last year, or I should say in the current year, of what you allocated to Metro 14 and what was spent, and has been the practice for every year going backwards, has gone into a reserve, usually for additional equipment.
So you're using fund balance to get to the 309.
That's correct.
Which is a little different, albeit relevant, issue than we were talking about. But moving to that issue, I don't recall. Was there a discussion by the commission of using fund balance to supplement the 283?
No, there wasn't.
Or that's essentially your proposal.
That's correct.
As embodied in this budget.
That's correct. And we said in the budget that we have deferred fixed asset expenditures in the current year to be prepared for that kind of contingency.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask about has to do with the non-Metro Cable 14 commission budget, and you mentioned in your remarks that you had put in, I thought I heard you say $45,000 for an audit of the commission.
Right. That was the most significant services and supply item expense.
Okay. Now, in looking at the detail on attachment 2, where is that $45,000 reflected, Rich?
It's part of the professional services. There's another $14,000 that were charged by the county for indirect costs that totals to $59,000. So there's 45 for the audit and another 14 or so.
Okay, so the 45 is part of the 59.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. That was one of the things I had circled as a question mark of why that had gone from the 12.5, what estimated actual for this year, to 59. And the other thing that's you also mentioned that's I would describe as a material difference from what the estimated actual for this year is the legal services. We're looking at coming in at $43,000. You're proposing to budget $75,000. I heard what you said about revisiting the consumer service regs. That still seems fairly generous to me. With all respect to Harriet, it seems.
I didn't come up with the total, so.
It seems like a pretty generous number to me. I would have thought this year we're finishing with a pretty busy year with all the things we've been doing. We've been talking about 30 megahertz. We've had transfers. We've had, various other activities of some intensity. I would not expect next year to be quite as active, and yet that's quite a jump.
Yes. In preparing the budget, as I mentioned, I looked at some of those contingencies. I hadn't seen the year-end figures yet on McDonough, and we're still a month off yet. We don't have all the figures in. So I think when we go final, first off, I'm agreeing with you. Secondly, I'm saying when we go final, I expect the year-end for legal services to be a bit more than 53. We don't have, or 43. We don't have it all in there yet. Maybe not a lot more, but
even if we look at the customer service regs, you're not anticipating the same level of legal activity next year, are you, as we've been experiencing this year?
Certainly not.
I hope not.
So
we certainly hope not.
We are hoping for a quieter year next year.
Yes. In looking at it, if there's a change you'd like to make there, from a staff level, it isn't a biggie. So if there's 20,000 you want, or some number you want to reallocate there, I'm not going to pound the table.
Well, it's not a lot in the greater scheme of things, but at this stage, every dollar going back to parents in the context of the overall policy decision we've made seems to me to make sense, whether it's $20,000 or more. So I would be prepared to support that. And I think that one could argue it should go to the grantees. We've had that pretty difficult discussion, frankly, and I think we probably ought not to go back through that door for fear of what's lurking behind it. But I think that any money we can give to the parents, we ought to consider doing that. Okay, those are my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Roger. Mr. Jones?
I had some of the same questions. You explained what's happening on Metro 14, but I guess I'm still troubled by the fact that our own admin and regulation budget doesn't show any decrease over last year, when last year did seem like an extraordinarily challenging and busy year, particularly in terms of the external services we required, both legal and also consulting. And I guess I'm wondering we retained a consultant last year to help us work through some of the initial analyses of the 30 megahertz commitment. Which part of our budget last year did that come out of? Was that the subtotal dealing with, was that a professional services item, or did that come out of somewhere else?
Transfer and consulting cost,
Most of it, there's a little bit of Edgar's time up under the legal for some real small stuff, but the bulk of his and everyone else's is under that 85,000, under the 2002, 2003.
Okay. And so you've got, so that was your estimated actual is 85,000 for that, for this budget year. And you're zeroing that out?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Okay. But you're increasing the line item above it, the professional services line item, to $59,000 from $12,000, and that's the county audit?
From 43.
Pardon?
You've gone down one line. It's 75, comes across to the 43.
No, he's on professional services.
I'm not on general counsel. I'm on professional services.
Okay.
So it's
Sorry.
59
is,
proposed
is the,
for admin regulation versus, I guess 12.
12.5.
5, yeah.
The 12.5 is now 14 with the county indirect allocation, and the 45 is what we believe is the right number for the audit of the commission.
Instead of 59?
No, those total 59.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I don't understand what.
So tell me, what's the 12.5 again? It's 45 for the audit, and what's the second number?
The county charges us to process payroll, to run our personnel system. Every time we cut a check to a vendor, we pay a fee.
And the county audit, it's a fee for service? And the county auditor doesn't provide audits upon request for subsidiary jurisdictions within the county?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not for free.
Not for free.
Darn.
And by ordinance, the county auditor is your auditor.
So we don't have any choice, we couldn't competitively bid it?
Unless you change the ordinance, as I recall.
By our ordinance
My
or by the county's
recollection
ordinance?
is you would have to change your joint powers agreement to allow for the use of an auditor other than the county auditor.
Okay, so we can't, it looks like we can't competitively bid it. Okay, well then I guess maybe that does, with all respect, leave us with the general counsel line item, which has jumped up significantly over what we budgeted last year. But I guess the general theme is just we wanted to do belt tightening across the board, and the concern that in fact our budget grows for admin and regulation from last year versus this year. Thanks.
The commission has a $150,000 budgeted reserve that is set aside. Operationally, as a practice, we have always included a $10,000 contingency within the budget. And in this case, I told you that I added $20,000 to the legal budget. But on the record, I want you to know that there's always $150,000 in the background, and that goes back to a lot of experience with sudden lawsuits and the commission having to go borrow money from its parents when that wasn't particularly the thing to do. So if you haven't read the financials, there is a reserve of $150,000. And I felt that an overall contingency of about 3%, given a budget that is otherwise collapsed fairly tightly, wasn't unreasonable in preparing it.
And when are we getting the results of the audit?
They are actively working on it now. We had a status report this week, email status. We're meeting with the auditor on Tuesday. We will, if his schedule completes, you will get an audit report in August, or if not a full report, you will get a status briefing from the auditor at your meeting, which we have a schedule change, is August 14th.
And is there anything happened in terms of the landscape, if you will, in the last couple of months that cause you any concern with regard to your revenue projections in the next budgeted year?
We worked hard on the revenue projections, and at $7.5 million, I mentioned that they are conservative, but I think they're reasonable. What's very tough in the marketplace is what satellite is doing to cable television and how that impacts our franchise fees. A report this week from one of the national surveys said that the cable industry is going to lose about 12% more of its customers on a nationwide basis. And how to factor that into what it means locally in terms of additional losses. And then offsetting that analysis by how aggressively the cable companies are marketing their services was quite complicated. As I looked at the last quarter and the last 4 quarters and going backwards and all the changes, Diane and I came to the conclusion that 7.55 was the best guess we could give you, and it's about 2.3% down over last year. If there are additional revenues and no other policy decisions by your board, those additional revenues would be automatically distributed to the parental entities at the end of the year in May, like we did this year. So that's your current policy. Hope that answers your question.
It does. And just one last thing. I thought this was an excellently written report, and the budget documents themselves were really well done. They were very readable, very understandable, and I just wanted to thank you and your staff. I thought it was really well done.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I just wanted to follow up. In terms of my understanding, the way this budget is put together also, that if we have that money budgeted under general counsel and we do not use it, then it can go one of 2 things. It's your year-end balance as a hedge against what might happen next year. And or you still have the ability towards that portion of the budget to return to parental entities.
That is correct.
So, you know, I hate to, at this point, start fooling around with trying to pull things out of here. I'd rather wait and see sort of what happens in the interim to the commissions, the whole system that we have set up. Are the revenues going to come in as you project? And if not, do we have some room in here? And I think it would be prudent for all of the people with the who are operating our systems for us, the different channels, to really be prudent also. If there's any ability in there to do some carryover, they should do some carryover.
I've got to add.
The only place the equipment and everything else can come from, too, by the way, is if you finally build up some sort of reserve. So.
Mr. Dickinson mentioned what's significant and what's not significant. As I look at the possibilities of significant changes to your budget, from an operational administrative standpoint, the one that concerns me the most is it's been 4 years since the county has come in and audited. So while I have a lot of confidence in Diane and the work we've done, it's always good to have the auditor come in and oversee. And some of the things that the auditors do when they're all said and done is that they look at the books and they adjust for vacation accruals and some other things at a very finite level that we've estimated. 4 years is a long time at the staff level to be going on our own books. And that has a little bit of concern for me at that level for change. And then the second one is I mentioned the issue on what the cable television revenues will be. If in August the trend line changes, I'll be letting you know that the trend line is up, down, or whatever. So my intention is to keep the snapshots on the budget to you more frequently than we have in the past because of all the focus.
Okay. James?
Yeah, just a couple of questions on the reserves. I'm trying to get a better understanding. It seems like we're carrying between a 40, can you hear me?
Yeah.
It seems like we're carrying between a 40 and a 45% reserve. Looking at the bottom, we have 150,000 in reserve for continuances. We have 171 for equipment reserve, and no carry forward, but 141 in security deposit. So I'm assuming the security deposit is a CD, something we purchased?
No, the security deposit is held in the pooled money investment fund. That belongs to the cable company. If you ever were to take an enforcement action on a customer service issue or any other franchise or license breach, your ordinance says that you would take that money from the cable company's deposit, and they would then have to replenish it within 30 or 60 days. So the security deposit is not public funds, if you will, but they do show on our books.
So we're actually carrying a $321,000 reserve, minus the 141.
Yes, the 150,000 general reserve, which we've had for a long time, and then the 171,000 reserve or balance is the set aside from the allocations you provided to Metro 14. In the same way that your community programming entities are given an allocation and build a fund balance, Metro 14 does as well. And it was the almost 10-year accumulation of that reserve that staff brought to you in 1999 and did the upgrade of all the equipment. So that is the Metro 14 equipment reserve, if you will, Metro 14 fund balance. And it's the difference each year between what you allocate to Metro 14 and what you spend. This year we're going to take a little money out of that reserve, and other years we've put money in it.
Any other comments?
Not a comment, but just in terms of the resolutions, so that there's not a problem insofar as my votes. Do we need to split out KVIE?
You should split out KVIE first. The commission can act on KVIE without you, and then you can act on the whole budget.
I think he's got some
I've got
speakers on.
forward. I have 3 speakers. Tony Salamanca. Welcome, Tony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tony Salamanca. I'm a member of the Access Sacramento Board. On behalf of the Access Sacramento Board of Directors, I would like to extend our thanks to the Sacramento Cable Commission for next year's budget funding. We pledge to continue our high standards for production, content, and giving the community a voice. I would like to also extend an invitation to all of you to our annual membership meeting for Access Sacramento on Thursday, the 19th. I think if I remember correctly, that's 2 weeks from today. And that's at our center, at the Coloma Center, at 4623 T Street. And we'll be convening in the Gold Run room. So we invite you there. And my last comments would be that as we all know that there is an audit underway and it's related to the cable company revenues. So please keep in mind Access Sacramento, we are taking a 35% operating cut from the funding we had last year. And so if there's any accrued funding, please keep us in mind. We would really appreciate any additions. Thank you very much. God bless. Have a great day and have a great summer.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Dexter McNamara.
Good afternoon. My name is Dexter McNamara. I'm the Executive Director of the Interfaith Service Bureau and Religious Cable Coalition for Cable Television, and I also sit on the board of Sacramento Access. I'm mainly here to say thank you to the commissioners for the hard work that you've been doing in terms of this, how we go about doing cable commission work in rather difficult financial times. I got to say I'm really pleased and rather surprised to see that the anticipated income decrease is only 2.3% as opposed to the 8% that we were working with for some time. If my math is right, that's about $455,000 more to work with than we were anticipating. So I do need to also say that I'm concerned about how those added back in funds are being allocated, since, as I understand it, that none of that is being added back to the grantees. That's a red flag for me. I would not advocate that we reopen that, but I just think it's really important to say, wow, what happened here? We've got an extra $455,000, almost $500,000, and none of that is going back to the grantees. But that's not my main concern. Main concern is this. With the FCC's recent ruling about media ownership, I don't think there can be any doubt that commercial media is going to move into fewer and fewer hands of decision makers, and that we're going to see a narrowing down of the kind of perspectives from which we hear everything based on what is marketable, what will be profitable. For democracy, I think that's really dangerous. Theologically speaking, I think that might be called the sin of greed, and I'm scared about that. So I would say that keeping and growing our sometimes goofy local channels is so important. From our sometimes exciting, as in today, the 30 megahertz presentation, but let's face it, not real sexy government programming, to our sometimes less than traditional religious programmings, having that is really, really important. We cannot afford to lose those, particularly what's happening and I think what's going to happen nationally in terms of media. So I would say let's keep working together to do a very patriotic thing. We need to maintain the wide range of voices, even if we don't always like what we hear in those voices. We got tough work ahead. Let's make sure we do it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dexter. Okay, our last speaker that signed up, Ron Cooper. If anybody else would like to address this body, now's the time to fill out a speaker slip. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you, Chair. Ron Cooper, Executive Director of Access Sacramento, and several of the points that I had questions about have been addressed, and I appreciate that. And I want to echo the budget layout for the Cable Commission I think it really did help to clarify what the issues are and how the monies will be expended. I also wanted to throw in my congratulations to the ED Consortium for creating an institutional network that was going to be one of the vital parts of the original cable build back in '87, and thanks to the ED Consortium and principally Liz Rhodes, she battled and battled and battled and battled, and the demonstration today is exciting. It's exciting for everyone. One thing I'd like to bring out, and this is a pet peeve of mine, when we talk about kids, okay, some of these kids are 70, 80 years old. Not all of the
Especially at Los Rios.
There we go, yes. But many of them are not in classrooms, per se. And so one of the things that I think we need to take a kind of cautionary note is that you're absolutely right. These students, these young people, and the 70 and 80-year-old folks are now going to be accustomed to a classroom without walls. And then they graduate, and then what happens? And I would hope that with all of the good work that's been done, as complex as it's been, that at some point in the not too distant future, we have a discussion about how even the resources which are currently now solely located on school campuses can be extended so that the wider communities can participate, and that those graduates of this exciting school without walls have a place to go. That is what an institutional network is, and we've seen a wonderful, powerful demonstration of it. But there's so much more that can be done. Also, kudos to Comcast. The 8% that triggered all of the angst over the last 6 months, I think in large part has to do with Comcast's aggressive reestablishment of the product. I think that kind of dramatic turnaround, it's a matter of weeks before we see back in the black. And I look forward to the audit report because, as I clarified to Susan, the representative from Comcast earlier, Access Sacramento Board has always been quite clear. The questions that we raise are about AT&T. The questions that we raise are the transfer. The questions that we raise is the lack of specificity when the quarterly checks are received and at that critical juncture of transfer of ownership. Those are the questions that we've raised, and we look forward to hearing the auditor's report. Just one final thought. As Metro 14 looks at its budget and its equipment reserve, I understand exactly, Supervisor Collin, what you're talking about. And let me put it in another direction. We are not going to be doing productions out at Casumnas River College. The part-time staff and the internships out there are gone. 10 of our remaining full-time staff were homeless before becoming staff members at Access Sacramento. The 35% cut in our budget is based on less hours for people who already work part-time. All of the increases in insurance and workman's comp and everything else that's been identified as a Metro 14 concern, all of the grantees share that. So we understand, we've offered our comments in respect to the budget crisis that you're facing. We ask in turn to be considered as this turns around, because we are doing the good work in the community, the work that you've asked us to do. No one has ever questioned that. There's never been a penny questioned in terms of how the money is being used efficiently and effectively. So we just ask for that consideration when that time comes, and look forward to working with the ED Consortium at some point in the future, expanding the classroom without walls. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. I'm sorry. Mr. Jones had a question, Ron.
Actually, more of a comment. I appreciated your testimony, and I think we will look very carefully at the audit results and look very carefully also if there are additional revenues at how best to allocate those. Your point about the INET and the accessibility of the INET to those who are not just school children made a lot of sense to me, and it was something we grappled with as we were sort of going from the 26 megahertz obligation to, well, how do we translate that into what we want, to what does that actually look like in terms of who are wiring up. And as you know, I mean, where we landed was on the schools, and I think that's the right decision. But it does raise the question, how do we ensure access to the network to those who may not be in the school from 9 to 5? And I mean, one way we've done that with the physical facilities of schools is by brokering joint use agreements. And the city of Sacramento has been very successful in terms of entering into joint use agreements with the school districts that lie within the city. And actually, the city has set aside a fund called the Community Schools Partnership Fund to fund physical improvements at schools that serve both the schools and the surrounding community and neighborhoods. And we awarded 17 grants last year worth $2 million. And we have another $500,000 that we'll be awarding hopefully in the near future. But I would like a report back from our staff on the question of what joint use agreements are in place at the school districts that will be served by the INET, and do those existing agreements contemplate access to this new infrastructure that we are creating in partnership with the schools and Smctc? And if not, how might we engage in a dialogue with the districts to reach that end? That is, of trying to see if there's opportunities for us to encourage the districts to make this network available to folks after school who may live in the surrounding neighborhoods or be parts of communities of interest that are involved with the school. And I think this whole thing really lends itself to trying to broker additional partnerships between schools and communities in which the schools sit. And I think you raise an excellent point. So I'd be interested in having a report back from staff on that. And maybe we need to think, I mean, my guess is the school districts would be interested in pursuing this. Maybe we need to also think about trying to formalize it in some way in the context of these agreements that we're entering into, like the one we entered into today.
Be glad to. I can say that the Ed Consortium and one of the school districts is working on a model of that, and it's kind of being tested now. So let us report back to you the results of that model and where it might go.
I'd be interested in that, but I'd also like to know specifically where each school district is on these sorts of agreements, and so that we could begin to work deliberately on trying to move that particular agenda, assuming the rest of the commissioners are interested in that. I just think there's a great opportunity presented here. We're doing wonderful things with the school kids as a result of this, but at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock, when the school empties, we've still got this great asset there, which is a physical asset, which oftentimes we use, but we need to think about this new information technology asset as well, and the opportunities it presents to neighbors and to communities after 5 o'clock. Or it's really 3 o'clock, isn't it, at the schools? That varies. But when the school day is over. Thanks.
The example that comes to mind, too, in this regard is we've been involved with subcontractors to regional transit as they hold public hearings on the new lines that are being developed. So just imagine, if you will, with the cooperation of the partners of the Ed Consortium appropriate, that there were school sites open and available for one evening all along the South County proposed line, back when those hearings were being held and so forth, that they heard the same presentation at the same time, and that were close proximity to their houses by just going to the school, and then that signal being sent out over the Access Sacramento channel, the Ed Consortium channel, whatever, in the evening, so that all 250,000 cable households who were interested could also participate. This is truly exciting when you stop and think about your planning concerns and the expense and time that it takes for staffing to set up elaborate meetings at many, many sites, and then hear complaints about it was the wrong day, I was busy, I'm in a wheelchair, I couldn't get there, and on and on and on. This is just a tremendous resource, and I don't want to complicate Liz's life or the Ed Consortium's life at all, but it is a tremendous resource, and I think worth exploring. I really look forward to hearing that report back.
Every time we raise the bar, and typically we don't raise the bar with Liz, she raises the bar on herself. She always exceeds expectations, so I just think it's, I mean, obviously we've got a lot of work to do on the basic infrastructure we're about here, but I just think there's a tremendous opportunity presented by your idea.
Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to indicate that to get all of that information is going to take some time and digging, because unincorporated portions of the county, a lot of the joint use agreements are executed through park districts, and they're executed with the various districts throughout the whole unincorporated area. And I'm sure that it's a little bit easier when you're dealing with a city and with limited number of school districts. So I just think it's going to take a while to get that. And Liz, you can address that, because the Ed Consortium probably has a very good idea of how to go about doing it.
Well, I think the comments probably came from the fact that you actually read the document, Mr. Jones, that we gave you called
Right.
BestNet, because it outlines exactly what you're talking about, and that is part of our long-range plan. So yeah, with that, you know, what you're asking is a lot of work, but it's something that we're already thinking about and something that we've already laid out, because we recognize that it is truly valuable, and where it makes a difference with Dr. B saying the walls have come down. That's what it means when the walls do come down. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but I would look forward to being able to work with Rich and everyone, all the rest of you on it, because I think some of that direction is going to have to come from that leadership role that you've played for a long time, in terms of, you know, the districts being able to step forward and do some of those things. And yeah, there's going to be barriers, but piece of cake.
Well, sometimes it takes a little nudging, and but I think you're right, and there's just a great opportunity here.
Okay.
One other thing.
Yes.
Dexter raised in his comments the suggestion that what had been projected as the difference between revenues from franchise licensee sources has grown compared to what was estimated. So I didn't go back and look at what you had projected earlier when we were having discussions earlier this year, but Rich, is the estimation of 2002, 2003 revenues different than what you had projected before, or are you or are you projecting in your proposed budget more revenue than you had projected before from that source?
I think we raised 50,000 in the projected budget, in the budget before you, from the
100.
numbers we had, I'm sorry.
100.
100,000, excuse me.
So you went from 7,450 to 7,550?
That's correct.
Okay.
Based on the revenues received on May 1st.
Which would be between 1% and 2%, 2% maybe. Okay.
Right. Yes,
And
the estimates beforehand were based on 3/4 data. We got a new set of data to use.
Is the 7.7 you're now estimating for actuals, has that changed?
No.
So that's the same number as we had previously been working with.
No, I'm sorry. It was $100,000 less previously.
Oh. Okay. So the estimated actual you were working with went from 7.8 to 7.7? And these things are getting closer.
7.6. You talking about this year?
No,
Current year?
yeah, I'm talking about 2002-3 estimated. Is that what you changed by 100,000?
2003-4, we upped by 100,000.
Okay, that was 7,450 to 7,550.
That's correct.
Okay, but the 7,730, that is your estimated actual for the current fiscal year, 2002-3, that's been the same number we've been working with? Or is that number changed?
It also went up.
I'm sorry, Dan?
From a budgeted standpoint, that's down quite a bit. I believe we budgeted 7.9.
Not budget.
Not budget.
Not
actual.
budget.
What we estimated earlier this spring, I believe, is what your starting point is. You're asking from earlier this spring?
Yeah.
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 It was
from
up,
earlier this...
down from budgeted, but from our estimate this spring, it was up about 100.
So you
Up
equalize
about
it.
100.
So that was up 100 as well?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Because this is not an 8%.
I don't have Bill's report in front of me, unfortunately.
It is, I mean, it's more like a 3% different from 7,730 to 7,730 to 7,550. So I'm just trying to sort out the math here. Dexter, do you want to?
No, well, let's see what Dexter thinks. There's
Also savings.
it's a big spreadsheet we can get into. Make your comment if you like, then I'll take it.
When we started negotiations with the grantees, my understanding was that we were going to be looking at a total drop of 8% from the previous year of total income. And what was going to happen with that 8% less is what got negotiated out. Am I right on that?
I don't believe so.
Well, I'm sorry Bill isn't here, because Liz, 8%. 8%. Okay, we were told that the commission was going to have 8% less to allocate. And so we made severe, RCCTV doesn't get involved in this at all because we don't get any money from you, okay? Right. But the other grantees had to take major hits because of a drop of 8%. We did that, and that was tough stuff. And, you know, Access ended up, what, 35? Okay. And now we find out it's not 8%, it's only 2.3%.
That's the difference you're talking about.
You know, if my math is right, that's about a $455,000 difference. And all I want to say is let's make sure we're on the same page, because if we make a drop based on 8% and then we say, oh, our actual budget is only 2.3%, I'm just concerned about, well, which figures are we dealing with and what do we add in and what don't we? So I ain't no math wizard, but 8% is a whole lot bigger than 2.3%.
Well, if it was total financing, that the estimated actual, the proposed for this coming fiscal year compared to the estimated actual, just eyeballing, is about 4% lower.
Okay.
For total financing.
Okay. That could be, again, I remember we said we're going to have 8% less.
I just don't remember what numbers. I mean, I don't remember exactly what numbers we were working with. I didn't look back.
We have praised Liz appropriately that it was 8%. Well, but you confirmed that that's what Bill.
Okay, well,
so that's
until we get the audit results. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think it may only be of academic interest, but from a credibility standpoint, not today, but you might want to look back and...
Point-in-time issues. The trend line reversed slightly with the last quarter. Second, that was Bill's estimate or a consultant's estimate, looking at the reduction in revenues from AT&T, your main driver of revenues. The reversal was that revenues from SureWest went up about 200%. There's $50,000 or $100,000.
Yeah, I think the relevance here isn't so much whether someone was 2% more or less in an estimate. Dexter's point is that if the numbers have changed as they become more certain and as the budget has built out, it would appear that it has changed to the detriment of the grantees in the consideration that there's been more revenue than anticipated when we were talking about the distribution, and that revenue has accrued to the benefit of the commission budget and Metro Cable 14.
I don't believe that's the case.
That is my understanding of the argument here.
It went to the parents.
It went to the parents.
Went to the parents. Went to the parents.
Yeah, that's where it went.
Okay, so irrespective of where it went, and that's right, I'm sure that's what happened. It went to the parents. The argument is that it was a decision made by the commission that was not taken in full consideration of what turned out to be the real numbers. Okay. You know where it went, though.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah, but I'm not sure it went to the parents. I mean, the parental distribution numbers here look very similar to the numbers that we saw 2 months ago, 3 months ago when we did the distribution decision. The numbers that seem to be higher to me are the Metro Cable 14 and the admin rig. Maybe it's a little bit of both.
Look at the budget overall. You have $500,000 less in total fund balance. That includes carry forward. The parents are held the same. You've reduced the community programmers overall by 20-some-odd%, and the administration budget is status quo. The reduction came out of community programming and went to the parents, and I believe that was your policy direction in April.
Right, but the parents took a cut also over.
Very, very small.
I understand that, but there was still about a 2% cut, and I guess, I don't know, what I'm struggling with is I'm comparing to the last time we were here and now, and I guess what I'm struggling with is it looks like we're not taking commensurate cuts in Metro 14 in our own budget. That's what I'm struggling with.
You reduced the allocation for Metro 14 from 335 to 283.
Okay.
On the same percentage in aggregate as you did to the other grantees accepting Access Sacramento.
The only thing I would say, it's too difficult to sort this out at the moment, but I think for purposes of everybody's understanding, it would help if you would track back, put a memo together on what has occurred, send that reconciliation or recounting, it's not really reconciliation, I suppose, recounting to us and to the grantees, so people will know what happened and the story is whatever it is.
Glad to.
Thanks.
All right. No other questions? I have a motion. First, we want to split out to Mr. Dickinson's section. So do I have a motion?
On KVIU?
Right.
So move, KVI.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions?
Abstain.
Mr. Dickinson abstains. Okay. Next.
I would move the balance of the budget and the distribution.
Second.
Okay, moving second. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Not hearing any. Passes unanimously. Okay, item number 3.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Unless it was included in the resolution, I didn't hear it. We have 2 sub-items to address within the budget item. One is a staff recommendation that you authorize the channel use agreements to continue to November 14th
Yes.
as currently
Sorry.
constructed. The issue there is that these agreements have been around for quite a while. You directed staff to prepare new agreements at the April meeting. In the current budget climate and with the focus on bringing the BestNet network into play, we just did not get to it. It's something that I'm comfortable with and like to bring back to you probably at your August meeting, and would like to work in concert, where we'll be working in concert with the grantee managers between now and then. So that's recommended for your approval.
Make it clear, I'll move items 2 and 3 also.
Question?
The staff recommendation, yes.
Yes, Mr.
On the channel use agreement, I don't know, we have a lot of new commissioners, and before we change it, I'd at least like to maybe have Harriet give us a presentation on what the current agreement is. And then when the changes come back, we have a better sense. There's a lot of new people on here that have not been here when the last channel use agreement was negotiated. So just give us a better understanding going forward. What are we actually changing?
That's okay, although we've discussed it a lot with the, but
I think the overall intent of bringing back a new agreement was to update it, make it more readable, and bring it into line with the decisions that the Commission made over the last several months with respect to the use of the channels and the sharing of the channels. The rest of the substance will be, very similar. It's just a matter of sort of trying to restructure it so it becomes an easier to use document.
I just want to make sure it's clear what we're changing.
Right. When we bring it back, I think we'll bring back a memo with it that says this is what it used to say and this is what it says now, if that works for you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think that's great, but to fully put that in context, I think it may be useful to also somewhere note what the original proposal was, which was channel reallocation, so that the new commissioners understand that the channel sharing really was a compromise between sort of the status quo and a staff proposal which involved total reallocation of certain channels. And so I think it's important that that be an element of this also, because I'm not sure, having done 6 months of that debate here and reached a conclusion, any of us is excited about having another 6 months of that debate.
Yeah, first, in response, one, it was a consultant proposal, not a staff proposal.
I understand.
And,
Okay,
and
look.
two, the intent is to take what you've decided and put that in the administrative document that allows the entities to use the channels. These documents have not been updated in over 10 years, and we heard some things. We need to clean these up. We will bring back the detail that you've asked for. But the intent is not to revisit any major issues. It's just to clean up the administrative document that authorizes the community programming entities to manage your channels.
Right. Okay.
Yes, Harry.
Can you split out in your motion for Mr. Dickinson the KVIE channel use agreement and do that one?
We did that.
We did. I thought you
No,
did
that
that
was
for
the
the
budget.
budget.
That was the
There is
budget.
there is a
I
KVIE
thought we were
channel.
doing the channel use agreements at the
Right, but there are separate channel use agreements for each grantee, one of which is KVIE. So if you could do that one separately, then your motion right now includes all the channel use agreements for all the different grantees, including KVIE. It's different from the budget item. So if you could do first a motion on the KVIE channel use agreement, and then Mr. Dickinson could vote on the rest of
on the extension?
Correct.
At the extension. I'm sorry, and I would so move
And
first
does your motion include number 3 also?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And this is with KVIE
Only.
excluded.
No.
Okay.
KVIE individually?
You can do KVIE either before
First.
or after, because
We're going to do it
it's a standalone
after.
agreement.
We're going to do it after.
Okay, this is together.
This
First.
is for everything on 2 and 3 with the exception of KVIE.
Okay.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Carries.
KVIE is a separate one. I would so move adoption.
Second.
Moving second, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstain. Very good. All right, so that, we can go to item number 3 now. Is that right, Madam Clerk?
Yes. We have franchise licensee general status presentations, and at the moment we don't have any speakers cards.
Signed up. I don't see anybody in the
They
audience.
had so much fun with the first item.
Okay. Item number 4.
Staff status report, meeting schedule, miscellaneous.
4th of July would be your next scheduled meeting, so we're recommending that you not meet on the 4th of July. We have
It's the middle of our city council vacation.
Yes, vacations as well. We have a meeting block, so it's recommended that we reschedule from August 7th to August 14th at 9:30 a.m. in this facility, and I'm asking for a resolution for you to
For
approve
which
that.
date?
This is for the August 7th meeting,
And so our next meeting is going to be August 14th.
August 14th at 9:30.
What day of the week is that?
It is also a Thursday. And if you approve it, we'll have a memo out to your scheduling secretaries in the morning.
We do
so
have it
should
on
the
their
motion-
calendars already.
And
Is-
Diane told me it's already on your calendars.
Okay, so this is the motion to drop the, or
To
drop
reschedule.
and reschedule. We're dropping July, and we're rescheduling the August meeting to August 14th.
That's correct.
Okay, that's the motion.
Second.
Right now, at that meeting, we have a status report, a report back on the audit, status report or recommendations for the channel use agreement, and miscellaneous report backs.
I'd like you to bring back something on this
wait.
idea of sharing the facilities.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
miscellaneous report backs.
Okay, good.
We're just conferring as to whether that's a SETA day, but if we're moving it from the 7th would have been the SETA day and the SACOG day and everything else, correct?
So we're okay with
So
one.
we're okay by
SACOG would be
going
the
to the
next Thursday.
14th.
Yeah, we had a unanimous from all your
Okay, then.
scheduling secretaries, except for I think one person.
Yeah, but I think we better, we wanted to double check.
Yeah.
Thought it was okay.
We'll have a memo out tomorrow, too.
Okay,
As long as you said it was gonna
so
be-
that nothing else gets scheduled in the meantime? Okay. Thanks.
Okay. That's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none? Carries. Okay, are there anyone in the audience signed up? What?
No, we don't have any other speaker slips for item 5.
That's it?
No, no.
That's it then?
That's it.
Okay, we're hereby adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Johnson?
Yeah. Well, I look at it as a real boon to Auburn Boulevard. NADA's been a terrific neighbor there, and they've been very supportive of our project on Auburn and Fulton, and trying very hard to make everything, I think, come back to play for good business along the corridor. We certainly need them and can use that business there. We're very anxious to work with them, and I'm just interested in knowing if the board has questions on how it's going to take place or anything else that you might want to ask, because
The only question I had just is relates to the interface with the residential property to the south there, that it butts an RD30 side, but the corner does touch what looks like to be
yes.
RD5 subdivision. I'm curious.
Off of Edison.
Off of Edison, correct, yeah, on the backyards. And you say a 6-foot fence, that may be the standard. The elevations are fairly flat there, if I recall, but sometimes a 6-foot fence with a fairly intense use abutting it.
Just the corner, I think.
Just the corner butts, right, exactly.
It would be, so they'd see there'd be a catty-corner relationship.
In addition to the 6-foot wall, one of the mitigations was to make sure that there's no openings that come out the side, the rear, so that there wouldn't be any auto repair and work that could be heard by the residents to the south. So that was one of the mitigations, is to make sure that there's a solid wall, that's the south wall, and all the roll-up doors face west and east.
I guess the question is there, Trish, is will 6 feet be high enough for some of those residents who might be on the corners? Is that what you're worried about?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
So you're wondering if it maybe should wrap around, or?
Right.
It would be just those 2 corner lots, probably. The other are next already to RD30. They're already backed up.
I was just looking at the 2 corner lots right there in that apex, where that could be the northwest corner, I guess the northwest corner of the residential property, southwest corner of the...
Well, one thing to keep in mind, I'm not sure exactly what's on the properties to the west and whether or not there's already a wall that continues on. Maybe I have an aerial photograph. We can maybe check that.
It's hard to remember. Go by there often.
I just go back to the days, and Tricia worked on this, and again, it was a different situation. It was a rezoning, but down at Laguna Boulevard and Franklin Boulevard, when we had the restaurant there, and we had homes that were fairly close. This looks like they have their rear yards. But I remember we dealt with the Jack-in-the-Box situation there, and the lighting and the wall and all that. And the wall was actually high enough, at least it met the standard. But because of topography and so forth, people could stand on that lot, look into the yards, and it was pretty problematic. And so that's why I was
pretty flat.
That's my recollection.
The Meta site is pretty flat, as I recall. I don't think it's a higher. But
in terms of a wall being continuous along the single-family residential boundaries, the property to the west was recently issued a use permit for used car sales, and we believe that that wall has been installed so that this wall here would be continuous with a wall that would be, I can point that out on the map if you'd like.
But there would be a wall behind them no matter.
Okay, this is this property, and as part of this project, a masonry wall would be built from that corner to that corner. And this property right here, which has a recent use permit, and as far as we know, there is a wall that continues on
to this point. And as far as other parts of the lighting aspect of it, at the rear of the property there would be car storage back here, and at this point we would have your typical parking lot lighting back there. As far as I know, there would be no high security lights, but perhaps the applicant can...
Shields. We ran into that again.
And we do have a standard that any parking lot lighting would be shielded from residential property, and that's something we check when the building permits come in. Perhaps the applicant... Does it show the lights? This site plan does not show the lights, but there would be security lighting and parking lot lighting back there. But this plan does not show that. That's something we normally check when the building permit is issued. So we can either add maybe a special condition that would flag that situation. Perhaps the applicant can tell us a little bit more about what they have in mind.
Okay. That's the only question I had. And again, it's not any particular issues with it. And I know, Ms. Johnson, you've been working very long and hard out with the community in this area to, get further reinvestment. I think this is certainly a good sign of that, and we want to support the application. I just wanted to, I was curious about the interface.
The site is very nice looking, very attractive.
And I raised a question because you want to hopefully make sure that the residential, I know you work with folks on Edison, that will, preserve its sustainability, and sometimes with lighting or noise can deter future home buyers.
Yeah, you want some lights back there because you do not want
people going over the fence. Yeah.
So you want safety lighting, but not bright lighting into your yard.
Right. Okay. Well, let me then, unless Ms. Collins, do you have any questions? Okay. All right. If there's nothing further, then I guess we'll call the applicant forward. Just state your name for the record if you could, and tell us you've been sworn. And I guess you've heard just a couple questions here, and if there's anything you want to add to that, and anything else.
Okay. My name is Bill Fargo. I'm with Jackson Construction. I am the applicant. I'm representing the Metis on this project. I'd like to address the wall a little
bit. You've been sworn as well, right?
Pardon me?
You've been sworn.
Yes, I have.
Good, thanks.
I'd like to address the wall first of all. The property that is to the south of us, for most of the project, we are relatively higher than they are. In fact, starting most east, we're probably 3 foot above the property behind us. And so then the property line seems to be running right on that ridge right there. What we're doing to soften this up, because if I did that, I would have to construct a big foundation, then this wall, and they would look out and see this huge freeway type wall. What we've done is we've actually pulled the wall back onto our property by a few feet to retain the berm that's there to soften it up a little bit. As they have said, staff has said too, we are mitigating sound as well as view by planting trees. So I believe it's 30 feet on centers down that property line. In regards to the lighting back there, since that is car storage, and then on the plan there, I think that you'll see that there is also employee parking on the lot to the east. The lighting back there will be pretty much county minimum standards, which I believe is 3 looms at the surface. Is that?
1.5.
1.5. We're not going to be selling cars at night there where we need this huge sales lighting out front. And security-wise, the property is fairly secure. So yes, we're going to make sure, just as I said, by standards, that we're not going to have light flashing into the yards behind us.
That's been an issue with some interfaces in the past, not just car lots, but.
I
was going to say, so the spillage, if it's, and so there's some shielding or the way it's directed, and depending on how high the standards are, if you have in topography, we get into some, the circumstances sometimes aren't real favorable from the standpoint of.
We have not gone as far as lighting design yet on it, but we certainly have to fulfill the code.
Okay. Can you help us? Is there already a wall or some sort of a fence that's going down behind the houses on Edison, just beyond your property where your corner meets?
To the west of us?
Yes.
As you were talking about it, I was trying to think if there is a wall from the west of us. There is a existing used car dealership that is directly west of us, and the property behind it right now is relatively empty. I would love to say that there is a wall at that end, but I can't honestly state that there is. The existing properties down there seem to have mostly chain link fences running across there. The Madas have a wall across their existing lot at the Toyota dealership. In fact, that's where we're going to join and continue that wall down.
The wall will be made of standard, what kind of a wall?
Using a split face? Or
It's a 6 foot, it's a standard CMU block. It's not a split face block.
So that will be, will it be a continuation of the previous wall? That's what I'm...
Yes,
so
yes.
They'll just keep moving down.
Oh, one thing I would say about the property to the west, if there's not a wall there, there should be a wall, and maybe we'll flag that.
That's the same question, yeah.
It has to eventually be there, so.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied about the lighting. Are you?
Yeah, I just want to ask a question to follow up on your comment about setting it back so you would allow for some retention of the berm that's there. Then you're going to work with adjoining property owners to how land, if you're going to construct a wall, obviously you're going to have folks that are having to lay the block and everything else. So are you going to help with the landscaping? It's still going to be on your property. What are you going to do on the other side of your wall that you actually won't be interior to your...
Right now, that as I said, the property varies. It starts at the east end, roughly 3 foot higher than the properties behind us. At the furthermost west end, it is almost level. I think we still probably have a little bit of a raise there. Right now, those yards are, the primary property behind us is apartments.
Apartment complex, right.
And right now, the yards are pretty much just a lawn area, and then just kind of the lawn kind of goes up the berm. That's all it is. We do not intend, to do a planning there. I certainly don't want to increase people's maintenance on that side there.
But you're putting trees on your side.
Yes, yes.
Well, let me ask, though, if you have that 3 foot, and even if you're setting it back, and you've got this general slope that makes your wall a 3 foot wall, it makes it pretty easy for somebody to come over the top then. Unless you come back down gradually to meet the base of your wall. If you just, I understand what you're doing, that you're setting it back, but if you're coming in like this, you're only going to have 3 foot of wall. The kid could scale that.
No, our wall will be 6 foot from grade, not 6 foot from the lower grade.
So there'll be a berm and then 6 feet on top of that.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
So
Okay,
it makes it higher.
Okay, I follow you. So you'd be
and that's why, our thinking was if I dropped it down to their grade and ended up 6 foot from my grade, I would have this 12-foot wall sticking up there. And as I said, that would look like a freeway wall in somebody's backyard.
But this will end up being taller and give a little more protection.
That's fine.
For their privacy from.
Yeah, that's good.
That sounds even better.
That's all the questions I had. Anything else?
Any other questions? Okay. Well, if everything's all right with you, Tricia, then
I was going to suggest on the lighting, we have a standard in the zoning code, but just so that we flag this so that when we look at the building permits, it gets checked, is just to add a condition stating that lighting shall be indirect or hooded and not glare into neighboring residential properties.
Perfect.
Okay, so we can make sure we check that.
Okay.
Yeah, because as we go out, we can find some glaring examples where I didn't even mean to use that word, and I did.
Yes, we can.
But
yes, you did.
It's
a pun.
Of light that's just unbelievable in terms of what it does to everybody who has to live around it. So if they can shade it down and keep it on their property, that would be better.
Sounds like it's not going to be bright lights there anyway in that whole back, so that's good. It's mostly storage. All right, then in that case, I would move that the negative declaration is adequate and complete and appropriate, and also move to approve the community plan amendment and rezone, subject to findings, and we've mentioned some of those findings about the lighting.
Well, as far as the conditions, it would be the conditions in the staff report, and then adding condition 12 about the lighting.
12 would be the lighting condition then, in addition to the listed conditions. And then approve the use permit for the new monument sign that we've seen here listed, and that we adopt the MMRP.
Okay. Was there a release from a prior zoning agreement?
Yes, includes a release from the prior zoning agreement.
Okay. So all that.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't listed separately on the recommended actions, but that is part